Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be discussing my art process just on this piece that I did here. So the first thing I did was I blocked in the silhouette. Blocking in a silhouette is very important in my opinion to get the general flow of a piece. And then I'm going over it right now with a dimmed opacity of my second sketch layer. Here I'm not worrying too much about the anatomy. I'm just trying to get the general pose in so I know what's happening in the piece and the general flow of it. I will adjust several elements throughout this, shrink the piece, make it bigger, zoom in on certain things, get a rough idea of everything. I'm not really worrying about the face right now either. It will look nicer, I promise. But I'm just doing this second sketch, and now we're moving on to the next sketch, which this is a second sketch. So I'm refining things here. I'm actually properly drawing in the hands. As you see, I move that hand, but I will move it again later, I believe. I roughen a few elements. I test things out, but I test things out a little bit less compared to the first sketch layer. And I just refine elements. I do detailing. I make sure to properly draw in the face. I flip my canvas several times here. I don't know if it picks up in the video because I don't know if Procreate tracks that thing. But I do flip my canvas several times to make sure that the eyes are lined up and everything. And I just go about refining details. I try to make my second sketch as clear as possible so that when I do line art, it is a lot easier to tell what all the details are. I also make sure that I'm pretty much okay with every element to a certain degree. If I need to refine something in line art, I can, but I personally find that it is easiest to do line art when all the elements are clear enough already in your sketch. And here I'm going to start my color comps. Now, I need to take my own advice and do these more often. But color comps are so important for an artist. It's really great to find out what colors that you want to use for a piece if you're not sure. I also turned this to grayscale. You may have seen that briefly, just because I was very unsure about the color, so I decided that I would look at it from a value perspective. And moving on from the color combinations, I'm moving on to testing a new brush. I decided to use a different line art for this piece. I was just feeling I needed something with more pen pressure sensitivity. I normally use a brush that doesn't have a ton of pen pressure, which if you don't know what pen pressure is, it's basically the harder or lighter you push, the bigger or smaller your brush is. But I decided to use one in the calligraphy section of Procreate. I am using Procreate, by the way, today on my iPad mini. And I enjoyed using this brush. I definitely think I'll use it in the future. If I can find the name of the brush, I will put it here on screen. And I just went about lining. I also did my liner on separate layers this time, which is actually very interesting because normally I line everything on one layer. But I decided I may end up coloring my line art for this. So having line art on separate layers is a lot easier when you need to color specific elements. So for example, I separated all the skin that was showing. I separated the clothing, and I separated the accessories and the hair to make it easiest for me to pick out the major points. I also colored the eyes on a separate layer as well. And this just makes it easier, and when I move on to coloring, I guess I could explain that now. I had 5 line art layers in total at the end of this, and I am going to group those layers, and then I'm going to duplicate that group, and then I'm going to merge that group so all the line art is on one layer. I'm going to set this layer to reference on Procreate, and basically this is going to allow me to color pick my line art in order to be able to just do everything in sort of one shot. So that way I don't have to go back and forth between layers, setting 5 different layers to reference at a time. You can see me filling it in right here. Originally, I had used the selection tool, but I wanted to try a different way of coloring, and this is just way easier in my opinion. And then I'm going to separate each of the color elements. So I do a separate layer for the skin, the hair, the clothing, the accessories, the eyes, the sword, and then I think I did a separate layer for the bow as well. And then I just decide my colors based off my color compilation you can see in the top left corner. And fun fact about this, I didn't use a multiply layer to shade any of this. You will see in a little bit that I will do an overall shading that I meant to use at the end, but I ended up not liking that as much, so I will not do as harsh of lighting as you're seeing right now. This will not be in the final piece. And I just thought it would look a lot nicer if I just didn't have such a harsh in dynamic lighting. As much as I love dynamic lighting, I felt like it didn't suit this piece as much. So I just went with a slightly more toned down lighting. The light source is in the top left, so the shadows are being casted around the bottom right. Normally I do shadows on the top right, so it was very interesting to shade on the right instead of the left. I went about shading this in my normal process of doing the skin first. I just like starting with the skin. Normally, I like to do the face first because shading the face is fun, adding blush, shadows, the shadow under the cheek. But as I was explaining earlier, I didn't use any multiply layers for this. This was purely just me color picking from the wheel using my painting technique. I actually posted a video last week about how I shade, and the technique I used for this was my painting technique. So if you'd like more information about that, I will leave that linked. But I just went about this as I normally did, shading each element as I normally would. It was a lot of fun doing this. I think I used a lot of midtones in this piece, which I don't really mind. There's not a ton of lighter colors. The blue and her skin tone, so like the brown color, is the most prominent color in this. And then the accents of white, yellow, and pink are sort of the less dominant colors. I really enjoy how this piece turned out, sort of using, I was going to say complementary colors, but blue and yellow aren't complementary, but they are close to being complementary. I really just enjoyed doing the lighting and the shading on this piece. I do believe I think I may have used an add layer for the highlights at the very, very end, but I don't entirely remember. I'll put that also on screen if I did. I'm going to be putting this print in my shop, so if you'd like to check out my shop or support me in any way, that is greatly appreciated. I appreciate you guys just watching and liking my videos as well, so this would be a great time to remind you to subscribe if you're enjoying my content. My channel has been growing a lot recently. I noticed that I gained 10 subscribers as I'm recording this of Wednesday, so I really appreciate all the support that I'm having right now. My shorts are doing really well, and I just want to thank you guys as my viewers for supporting me so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you guys allow me to share my art with you. And if you have any questions, I have several social medias, and I'd be happy to answer any of them if you'd like. My commissions are currently open as well. But I want to thank you all for watching this video and joining me for this little voiceover in my process, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey you! Wait, you! Did you know that I have a Pinterest, an Instagram, and a YouTube? You should follow me there. I post lots of content all the time. I appreciate all the support you all give me, and thank you.